Tansei, good evening and welcome to APTN National News. I'm Daryl Stranger. Preparations for the Pope's visit this Sunday are nearly ready. APTN's Chris Stewart spoke to Father Cristino Bouvet, a Cree-Métis priest who is the national coordinator for the visit.
When Father Cristino Bouvet was chosen to be the national liturgical coordinator for the Pope's Canadian visit, he couldn't believe it. But he seemed the perfect choice. Cree-Métis on his father's side and Italian on his mother's. He says his ability to speak Italian, the language spoken in the Vatican, might have helped. He will ensure the locations of worship are ready for the Holy Father.
This is something that I never, in my wildest dreams, could have imagined doing or being asked to do. So of course it is a great honor. It's a huge burden too. I don't want to get it wrong, right? There's a lot that needs to be done in a very particular way, in a very tight timeline. But then at the same time, there are people whose hearts and souls are wrapped up in all of this. And so to make sure that they are adequately cared for, loved, respected, that's always at the front of my mind.
There was some conflicting emotions when Father Cristino heard about the Truth and Reconciliation Call to Action number 58 in 2015, which called for the Pope to apologize for the harms caused by residential schools and to have it done in Canada. Father Cristino's grandmother, Amelia, was a residential school survivor. She attended the Edmonton Indian Residential School, operated by the United Church.
I was already a priest then, and it stirred up something in me. There was a sense of, on the one hand, some frustration at feeling that there were some who thought that that was necessary, but then some shame that maybe it was necessary, and generally just confusion about how I was to feel. And so I talked about it with Kokum and asked her perspective. How did she feel about this? Did she think that this was necessary? And interestingly, she didn't. She had a different perspective. She felt, because of where she was at in her life and the path of reconciliation she herself had walked and experienced, she did not need to hear an apology from the Pope on Canadian soil.
Father Cristino says his grandmother would be proud of his work.
Knowing her and knowing the people that I know she loves and cares for, who are looking forward to this, who do feel that this is necessary, she would be just over the moon that I am having some part in it, and that it is all actually coming to pass. I think the joy that I know it would bring her, the honor that would bring her, is a part of what has motivated me throughout this process as well.
He says he has seen a wide range of feelings from parishioners who have spoken to him on the Pope's visit and apology.
There are those who are adamantly against the Pope coming to Canada. I think they probably see this as too much an opportunity for the Church to get off the hook, to seem like, okay, now we can sweep this under the rug because we brought the Pope here and he said he's sorry and now we have to move on. I respect the people who have that perspective. I don't agree with it because I know that that is not what we are trying to accomplish through this. But I do know that there are others who are so elated, especially among the elders who I know and serve in a previous parish community where I used to be stationed. I served the parish at Tsutsina Nation, and to know what this means to them.
Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
Residential school survivors from southern Saskatchewan will be traveling to Alberta to see the Pope. The Regina Roman Catholic Archdiocese is arranging the trip after Archbishop Don Boland promised to do so. Survivors had been calling on the Pope to visit the last standing residential school in Saskatchewan at Muskowhegan. Pastoral Services Director Lisa Polk is arranging the trip for 173 people, which includes survivors and those supporting them. She says they're committed to helping survivors during and after the trip.
We expect that it's more than just dropping them off of the bus, and that there would be a continued walking together, so that if there were supports that Indigenous people and survivors of residential school need, from the church, that we're there to assist with that. And whether that is Indigenous spirituality, ceremonies, mental health supports, that we are, ready to help and walk with them in those journeys.
In Manitoba, Indigenous organizations are also gearing up to travel to see the Pope in Alberta. The Manitoba Métis Federation and the Manitoba Kiiwetinoong Ogamaganak will both be sending buses of elders and survivors to see the Pope. Those making the journey will be looking for the Pope's apology on Canadian soil. MMF's Minister of Residential and Day Schools, Andrew Carrier, who was a day school survivor himself, said this is an important step in the healing journey.
This is an opportunity for us for healing and to move forward with our lives. As a survivor, the trauma that you deal with your whole life, you have no way of truly letting it go. However, the forgiveness will provide us with an avenue to heal and to let go of that anger.
The last residential school in Quebec closed in the Innu community of Mashdoats in the early 1990s, making it the ideal departure point for a group of 13 marchers from First Nations all over Quebec, embarking on a 7-day, 275-kilometer journey to Quebec City, arriving just in time for the Pope's touchdown. Here's the story from Shushan Bécon, translated and voiced by Lindsay Richardson.
This is it, the beginning of a long-anticipated trek uniting First Nations in Quebec. 13 people from the Anishinaabe, Atikamekw, Innu, and Wendat nations of Quebec will march together, undertaking a 275-kilometer journey on foot through Quebec's Parc des Laurentides. The goal? To reach the Plains of Abraham in Quebec City in time for Pope Francis's visit. The initiative has been organized and facilitated by a non-profit wellness organization, APTN National News.
Puis ce qu'on avait envie de faire, c'est d'offrir une occasion aux gens de se rassembler autour des survivants, des survivantes, des pensionnats. Je pense que c'est important de se rappeler les raisons pour lesquelles le pape vient au pays, c'est pour présenter ses excuses.
While the walk began in high spirits, conditions can quickly turn.
Ça sera pas bien long cette année, je vais te donner la parole.
According to Dr. Stanley Vallant, president of APTN National News, you don't need a medical degree to acknowledge the challenges in this undertaking.
Marcher aussi longtemps sous la chaleur, ça peut être très difficile physiquement, ça peut être difficile pour les pieds, mais cette douleur-là, elle représente un peu tout ce que l'on a subi depuis 500 ans.
Physical discomfort is only one factor to account for. Alexandre Dumais-Dubé from Kitigan-Zibi says overall he's apprehensive, but is finding motivation to walk the 275-kilometer distance by calling on the strength of Indigenous children who made it through the residential school experience.
J'ai l'impression de porter quelque chose avec moi. Je peux pas le nommer, hein, mais je pense à ma tante Jacqueline, c'est la seule des frères et sœurs à ma grand-mère qui ont vécu en pensionnat. Elle est encore vivante aujourd'hui. Elle a fréquenté le pensionnat de Mastoyache. Je pense à eux, mais je pense également à ma grand-mère. Je pense à tous les membres de ma famille, tous ceux qui vivent encore le trauma intergénérationnel.
Chantal Nikwe is a survivor of the Pointe Bleue Residential School, one of the last in Quebec to close. She says she put everyday life on pause to participate in the march.
J'ai pensé à mon père, puis j'ai pensé à moi, parce que je le porte en moi, ça, je le porte en moi, puis je veux me libérer de ça. Casser la chaîne, comme on dit, pour l'avenir qui s'en vient.
For Mastoyach Chief Gilbert Dominique, the Pope's apology is an important step in the healing process. But as a child of residential school survivors, Dominique emphasizes the need for reparations.
Bon, maintenant concrètement, là, moi je vais m'attendre à ce que l'Église s'engage à réparer les torts qu'elle a contribué à faire et entame avec les Premières Nations une démarche là, pour voir comment est-ce qu'elle pourrait réaliser cette étape-là.
Emotions are less mixed for some. Thérèse Telèche-Bégin, another survivor, says the Pope's arrival is very important for her.
Ça me fait chaud au cœur de vous dire ça. Nous sommes fiers
notre Saint-Père qui vient pour le peuple autochtone aussi et pour toutes les nations aussi.
The group's expected to arrive in Wendake, just outside Quebec City, on the 26th of July, where commemoration, ceremony, and prayer for the visit will begin. A story by Shashan Bacon, APTN National News, Mashtoyats, Quebec.
All right, we need to step aside for a short break, but first, here's a preview of an interview from our Kathleen Martins.
Some say he's a monster. Others have called him the devil priest. But he says he's innocent and never sexually abused children while working for the Catholic Church in Nunavut. Coming up on APTN National News, you'll hear from Father Ioannis Revoir here in his retirement home behind me in Lyon, France.
Welcome back. To the Northwest Territories now. Leaders attending a Dene National Assembly this week are discussing a proposal to conduct multi-year work on the 15 residential school sites in the Northwest Territories. Our reporter Charlotte Moore-Jacobs brings you that story.
In one section of the LaPointe Hall, we were literally right over these graves. We talked to the nuns and the priests, and they just said, well, it's just in your mind.
The Dene Nation is vying to search 15 residential school sites with ground-penetrating radar for unmarked graves across Denendeh. Submitting that proposal comes with big emotions, important questions for survivors and their families who are attending the Dene National Assembly outside of Yellowknife.
What's the protocol after that? Is that something that the First Nation ourselves, are we the ones that are going to set up the protocol to make sure that the ceremonies that normally come with something like that is done properly?
The project is expected to take 2 years and include archival research and consultation with elders. Research coordinator Tom Andrews has experience with searches in Fort Providence and Grassy Narrows.
We know in a lot of the communities there are a key number of elders who have very particular knowledge about the history of the residential schools, where the graves are, etc., and it'd be really important to combine and collect that knowledge as well.
How far can you pick up the ground graveyard and with the radar? Because I'll tell you now, Indigenous graveyards, sometime in the Esker, probably be deep, and probably on Muskeg or probably be frozen ground, probably be shallow.
Depending on the kind of machine, it can see up to 8 meters, but the depth at which it works the best is 1 to 2 meters below the surface.
Bettinclay First Nation member Rebecca Gray also comes with experience in burial research and will earn a PhD as she helps with the project.
Yeah, I'm just curious to see how does that affect you, like emotionally, spiritually?
I found myself affected by it and still continue to, not just with the impact of the children's spirits, but also with the surviving members who are still there in the communities.
The proposal includes long-term healing and memorial work, which could be similar to Fort Providence, who created a commemorative site with names of children who died at the Sacred Heart Mission School.
I've been to the memorial site in Providence. I have 3 of my relatives that never made it home. 3 years in a row, I've visited the site along with some other elders.
I have often wondered what happened to them.
Family of missing children like survivor Paul Andrew says he hopes the work will bring him answers.
Is it possible that I have cousins somewhere in the world? Or is that it? I don't know if those questions will ever be answered. but I sure hope that we can get a sense of that, so that I will have closure, and that my dad and my grandmother will also have closure in this. No more wondering what happened to my aunts.
Charlotte Mort Jacobs, APTN National News, Willowday, Chief Dry Geese Territory.
Several dozen members of the community of Grassy Narrows took to the streets of Toronto on Thursday because the Northern Ontario community has a long history of environmental poisoning. They're hoping to put an end to it, and as Annette Francis reports, they showed up with a lot of supporters.
Close to 2,000 people gathered outside the front doors of Queen's Park, home to Ontario's legislature, with signs, T-shirts and stickers. They want politicians to listen and do something.
Because what's going on in Grassy Narrows shouldn't have ever happened, and as well, it should have been cleaned up by now. People should have been taken care of and given the care they needed and be paid back for everything they've lost.
That's exactly what this March for Justice is all about. For the past 60 years, the community, which is 90 kilometers northeast of Kenora, Ontario, has been living with mercury poisoning in their water. It motivated Vicky Asson and her niece Elsie to make the 800-kilometer trek to Toronto.
Just to raise awareness for the mercury poisoning that's happening with our people. It causes a lot of damage to our, like even having our kids too, we're just passing it down. So,
and it's incurable?
Yeah, it's incurable, and it's a sentence for life, yes.
Award-winning playwright Wawadi Fobister performed a solo excerpt of Amalgamon, a character that he created who comes from the Earth's crust, bringing mercury, which comes to life and poisons his community.
Family members are sick, my community is sick, I lost family members to it, so that's why it's important.
From there, in a display of unity, they marched down Bay Street to Indigenous Services Regional Office. Chief Randy Fobister says they're here to send the Ontario and federal government a message.
We're demanding compensation for all, and the government needs to look into the future, what's happening here in the community, and the government is the one that caused this from the beginning, also the companies. So they got to understand our demands, and we want no mining in our territory, absolutely no mining, and we want no forestry in our territory. We want the land to heal.
Chief Fobister says he's pleased with the support behind his community. He said they'll keep pushing their demands so future generations can live healthy lives. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Toronto.
This week, the City of Winnipeg and 7 Treaty 1 First Nations signed an agreement that will see the former Camp Yonge Barracks site turned into Canada's largest urban reserve. The site has been named Nawe Odena and will sit on the former military barracks that was closed in 2004. For more than a decade, the Treaty 1 First Nations battled over the land in court, saying they should get first dibs as part of their treaty land entitlement. In the summer of 2019, Canada signed off on the deal and gave them the land. The City of Winnipeg will provide municipal services for the urban reserve.
Together, we are building a strong foundation for generations. The signing of this agreement today makes me feel like I've contributed to something good and something impactful. We have experienced hardships throughout and through our oppressive colonial systems, but we got it here today. I'm confident that our children and grandchildren will not have to repeat this work because we all showed up with the willingness to do better and to be better.
All right, we need to step aside one final time, but after the break, Saskatchewan's Métis are finally going back to Batoche. Details when we come back. Welcome back. It's time now for our photo of the day. Mandy Wainwright took this photo from her boat. This was the sunset she saw while on the waters of the Georgian Bay located near Parry Sound, Ontario. Great shot, Mandy. Send your photos to share@aptn.ca for the chance to be our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting over in the east, some rain and 28 in Charlottetown and 28 in St. John's. 22 degrees in Happy Valley Goose Bay and 11 in Cartwright. 25 degrees and some rain in Val d'Or and 30 in Montreal. 30 in rain in London and 26 in rain in North Bay. 25 degrees and rain in Timmins and 19 in Big Trout Lake. Some rain and 8 in Churchill and some rain in 14 in Puckatawagan. 23 and some showers in Barons River and 28 in Dauphin. 29 and showers in Swift Current and 24 in North Battleford. 18 degrees and showers in La Ronge and 20 in Stony Rapids. In the west, 18 and showers in Fort Chippewa and a mix of sun and cloud, and 24 in Peace River. 24 in Edmonton and 26 in Lethbridge. 25 degrees and clear in Campbell River and 26 in Bella Coola. 26 in Prince George and 22 in rain in Fort Nelson. 20 in Whitehorse and 14 in showers in Old Crow. Some showers and 20 in Wrigley and 21 in Fort Simpson. 14 and rain in Fort McPherson and 11 in Inuvik. 20 degrees and clear in Baker Lake and 21 in Cambridge Bay. 10 degrees in Arctic Bay and 7 in Iqaluit. Saskatchewan's Métis are finally going back to Batoche in person after 2 years due to the pandemic. It's the 50th anniversary, and it's expected to be one of the largest gatherings to date, with up to 10,000 possible visitors through Sunday. Métis Nation of Saskatchewan's Tourism Minister Brent Dignas says part of this year's Back to Batoche Days is a memorial to all the Métis people lost during the pandemic. He says they'll also remember those who sacrificed their lives at Batoche during the 1885 resistance and who are buried just across the road from the ceremonial grounds.
But it's never that far away that we don't forget. And it's a celebration of Batoche and what we recognize as coming together as a culture today. But in recognizing, we haven't lost sight of those that we lost or the battle that was fought there for our rights.
Well, that's all we have for you tonight on APTN National News. Next week, we will have plenty of coverage from the Pope's visit for you, so stay tuned on that. For more Indigenous news and coverage from the Pope's visit, check out our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Daryl Stranger. Thank you for joining us. Miigwech, and have a great night.